What happens when you divorce your wife because she's been destroying you for years, only to marry someone new who turns out to be sleeping with that same ex-wife? That's not a hypothetical. That's what happened to Richard Jonathan. And by the time he found out, he was standing in a doorway in Oakland with a gun in his hand, staring at the two women who ruined his life, together. Richard is 32 when this story starts. He's an architectural project manager in San Diego. Good job, solid paycheck. Owns a condo in North Park with a view of Balboa Park. On paper, he's got it figured out. But here's the problem. He's coming home to silence. Microwaving leftovers for one. Scrolling through Instagram, watching his college friends post engagement photos, gender reveals, family trips to Disneyland. And he's tired of it. Tired of being the guy who's focused on his career. Tired of first dates that go nowhere. Tired of waking up alone. So he makes a decision. It's time. Time to find someone. Time to build something real. Time to stop running from commitment just because he's scared of getting hurt. He doesn't know it yet, but that decision, that moment of hope, is about to cost him everything. Her name is Haley Banks. They meet at a rooftop party in the Gaslamp Quarter. Mutual friends, string lights overhead, music thumping, drinks flowing. And Haley, she's magnetic. Loud laugh, confident stride. The kind of woman who walks into a room and makes everyone feel like they're the only person worth talking to. Richard watches her work the crowd, touching arms, throwing her head back when she laughs, locking eyes like she's reading your soul. And he thinks, this is her. This is the one. He doesn't know it yet, but Haley isn't the answer to his loneliness. She's the beginning of a nightmare that won't end for 8 years, because the woman Richard marries, the one who will drain his bank account, cheat on him with multiple people, and eventually put her hands on him, is about to do something even worse. She's about to introduce his second wife to betrayal. Have you ever met someone who felt like the answer to everything you wanted, only to realize later they were actually the beginning of your worst nightmare? Drop a comment if you've ever ignored red flags because you were desperate to believe in someone, because Richard ignored them, and it almost destroyed him twice. Welcome to Compass True Crime Stories. Kindly support and encourage us by subscribing to this channel as we continue to keep you entertained, new true crime stories around the world on a daily basis. Don't forget to comment, like, share, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next interesting and chilling true crime story. Richard and Haley date for 18 months, and for those 18 months, everything feels right. She's a fitness influencer with 50,000 followers, posts motivational quotes at sunrise, trains clients at a boutique gym in La Jolla. She's got this energy, driven, ambitious, always moving. When Richard talks about his work, she actually listens. She shows up to his firm's charity events, compliments the building models he stays late perfecting, tells him she loves that he's a man with vision. She says all the right things. She feels like the right person. So when Richard proposes at Sunset Cliffs, down on one knee, waves crashing behind them, tourists clapping, Haley doesn't hesitate. She says yes. They get married 3 months later. Small ceremony in La Jolla. Just close friends and family. Haley's idea. She says she wants it intimate. Just us. No big production. Richard thinks it's sweet. He has no idea she's already planning her exit. The honeymoon is in Tulum. 7 days of beaches, cocktails, and promises about their future. They get back to San Diego on a Wednesday afternoon. By Friday, Haley has quit her job. Just like that. No notice. No backup plan. She tells Richard she's burned out from the fitness industry and needs time to reset. Richard doesn't push. He figures she's been grinding for years. Maybe she does need a break. Take your time, babe. Figure out what makes you happy. Week 1 becomes week 2. Week 2 becomes a month. Haley's not looking for work. She's not applying anywhere. She's not even pretending. She's sleeping till noon, binge watching reality TV in her pajamas, ordering DoorDash twice a day, sushi for lunch, Thai food for dinner. The condo, a disaster. Dishes piled in the sink. Laundry overflowing from the hamper. Half-empty coffee mugs growing mold on the counter. Richard comes home after 10-hour days at the firm, and Haley's on the couch, scrolling TikTok, asking what's for dinner. He doesn't say anything. Not yet, because marriage is compromise, right? Maybe she just needs more time. Month 3, month 4, month 5. Haley still isn't working, but she's spending. Designer sneakers, new athleisure sets, brunches at overpriced cafes in Little Italy where avocado toast costs $18. Richard is covering everything. Mortgage, utilities, both car payments, her phone bill, groceries, insurance. He's working 50-hour weeks on a mixed-use development project downtown, pulling late nights to meet deadlines, and when he checks their joint bank account, the one they opened so they could build together, he sees charges he doesn't recognize. $400 at Sephora, $100 at Nordstrom, $300 at Lululemon, a hotel charge in Los Angeles. 2 nights, $500. Richard texts her, "Babe, what's this hotel charge?" She replies 3 hours later, "Visited my cousin, needed a girls' weekend. Why, you tracking me now?" He's not tracking her. He's just trying to understand why their savings are disappearing. But when he brings it up over dinner, Haley flips it. "I deserve to enjoy life, Richard. You want me to just sit here like a prisoner while you work all day?" "I'm not saying that. I'm saying maybe we should have a budget." "A budget? Are you serious right now?" She throws her napkin on the table, gets up, walks out. Richard sits there alone, staring at his half-eaten pasta, wondering when his wife became someone he doesn't recognize. 6 months into the marriage, Richard leaves work early. Site inspection got canceled. He figures he'll surprise Haley, maybe take her to dinner, try to reconnect. He walks into the condo at 3 in the afternoon. The bedroom door is cracked open. He hears voices, laughter. He pushes the door open. Haley's in their bed, with another woman, not a stranger, someone Richard has met. A friend from Haley's gym. They've had dinner together, double dates, and now she's here, in his bed, with his wife. Haley doesn't even look guilty. She pulls the sheet up, looks at Richard like he's the one intruding. This isn't what it looks like. Richard just stands there. He doesn't yell. He doesn't move. He's too shocked to do anything. "It just happened, okay? I'm figuring things out." Figuring things out, that's the excuse. And because Richard still loves her, because he's already invested 6 months, a wedding, a life, he forgives her. He tells himself it was a mistake, a one-time thing. Maybe she's confused. Maybe they can work through it. But it wasn't a one-time thing. It happens again. Different woman. Same excuse. Then again. Late-night texts from numbers Richard doesn't recognize. Lipstick on Haley's collar that isn't her shade. Expensive lingerie Richard never sees her wear. At least not for him. She's not even trying to hide it anymore. One time Richard finds a receipt in her jacket pocket. Jewelry store, $400, gold bracelet with custom engraving. He never got a bracelet. Some other woman did. When Richard confronts her, Haley turns it around. "Maybe if you were home more, I wouldn't feel so lonely. Maybe if you actually paid attention to me, I wouldn't need to look elsewhere. Maybe if you weren't so boring, I'd still be interested." Every conversation ends the same way, with Richard apologizing, with Richard trying harder, with Richard wondering what he did wrong. Year 3 of the marriage. They're fighting about money again. Haley maxed out one of Richard's credit cards. $8,000, most of it cash advances. "Where did the money go?" "I don't know, Richard. I spent it. Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters. I'm working 60-hour weeks trying to keep us afloat, and you're—" She shoves him hard. Richard stumbles backward. His hip hits the kitchen counter. Pain shoots through his side. Haley's eyes go wide, like she's surprised by what she just did. "Oh my God, I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" "You just shoved me." I know, I'm sorry. I just got so angry and—" Richard doesn't know what to say. He's never been in this position before. He tells himself it was a one-time thing. She was upset. It won't happen again. But it does. A slap during an argument about her staying out all night. Another shove when Richard asks her to help clean the condo. One time she throws a glass at him. It shatters against the wall 2 inches from his head. And every time she apologizes, every time she cries, every time she swears it's the last time. Richard wants to leave. He knows he should leave, but he's ashamed. He's embarrassed. He's a grown man getting pushed around by his wife. And who's going to believe that? Who's going to take him seriously? So he stays. Year 8, Richard checks their joint savings account. The one he's been contributing to since they got married. The one that was supposed to be for a house, for kids, for a future. Balance, $147. There should be $47,000 in that account. Richard calls the bank. They confirm multiple withdrawals over the past 6 months, all authorized by Haley. When he confronts her, she doesn't even try to lie. I invested it. You what? A friend of mine is starting a wellness business. She needed capital. I thought it was a good opportunity. A friend? Haley looks away. And that's when Richard realizes it's not just a friend. It's someone she's sleeping with. His wife drained their savings to fund her girlfriend's business. And that's it. Richard is done. Richard files for divorce the next day. Haley doesn't fight it. She moves out within the week, crashes with one of her girlfriends in Ocean Beach. The divorce is finalized 4 months later. Richard gets the condo. Haley gets nothing, because there's nothing left to split. She destroyed everything. By the time it's over, Richard is 40 years old. 8 years gone. His savings wiped out. His confidence shattered. He looks at himself in the mirror and barely recognizes the man staring back. But at least it's over. At least he's free. At least he can finally move on. Or so he thinks. 6 months after the divorce, Richard meets someone new. Her name is Grace, and she's everything Haley wasn't. She's kind. She's grounded. She's got her own career, her own money, her own life. For the first time in years, Richard feels like maybe he can have something real, something healthy, something safe. He has no idea that Grace is about to destroy him worse than Haley ever did. Because Grace has a secret, and that secret has a name. 6 months post-divorce, Richard is in therapy twice a week, working through the abuse, the gaslighting, the financial manipulation. He's rebuilding his savings, slowly, paying off the credit card debt Haley left behind, reconnecting with friends he ghosted during the marriage because Haley always had a problem with them. He's not looking for love, he's actively avoiding it. Dating apps, deleted, blind dates, hard pass. His therapist keeps telling him, "You need time to heal. Don't rush into anything new." Richard agrees. He's done with relationships, done with trying, done with hoping someone will actually show up for him. Then he meets Grace Moreau. It's at a community volunteer event in City Heights, Habitat for Humanity Build Day. Richard's firm does it every year. Team bonding, good PR, tax write-off. Grace is there running logistics. She's the director of a nonprofit that provides resources for homeless youth, transitional housing, job training, mental health support. She's wearing jeans and a faded hoodie, hair pulled back in a messy bun, directing volunteers with a clipboard and a walkie-talkie. She's not flashy. She's not performing. She's just there, present, real. During lunch break, they end up sitting on the same curb, eating sandwiches from the catering truck. Grace asks about his work, not in a polite surface-level way. She actually wants to know. What's it like designing buildings? Do you ever drive past something you worked on and think, I made that? Richard hasn't had a conversation like this in years. Someone asking him questions, actually listening to the answers. They talk for 40 minutes about architecture, about her nonprofit, about San Diego, about nothing important and everything important. When the day ends, Grace hands him her business card. If your firm ever wants to partner on affordable housing projects, let me know. Richard pockets the card. He tells himself it's professional, networking, nothing more. But 2 days later, he texts her. They meet for coffee, then dinner, then a weekend hike in Torrey Pines. And Grace is different. She pays for herself, insists on it. When Richard offers to cover dinner, she smiles and says, I appreciate it, but I got this. She doesn't need him to fix her problems. She doesn't dump her emotional baggage on him. She doesn't ask for money or favors or access to his life. She has her own apartment in Normal Heights, her own car, her own career, her own friends. She talks about her goals, expanding the nonprofit, opening a second location, applying for grants. She's focused, driven, grounded. When Richard mentions the divorce, Grace doesn't pry. She just nods. Breakups are hard, especially when you gave everything. She doesn't ask for details, doesn't push, just acknowledges the pain and moves on. For the first time in years, Richard feels like he's in an equal partnership. Someone who shows up, someone who contributes, someone who sees him as a partner, not a provider. 4 months in, Grace's nonprofit gets a major grant, $500,000 to expand services. She's ecstatic. Calls Richard from her office, breathless with excitement. We got it. We actually got it. They celebrate that night. Dinner at a nicer restaurant than they usually go to. Wine, dessert. And Richard realizes, this is the kind of woman he should have waited for. Someone with passion, purpose, someone building something that matters. 2 weeks later, he proposes. Nothing elaborate, no big production. Just the two of them at Balboa Park, sitting on a bench overlooking the botanical gardens. I know it's fast. I know we've only been together a few months, but I also know what I want. And I want this. With you. Grace doesn't hesitate. Yes. They get married at the courthouse, small ceremony, just a few close friends. No big reception. Both of them agree. They've done the big wedding thing before. This time it's just about the commitment. Richard feels lighter than he has in years. Like maybe, finally, he's getting his second act. The first 3 months of marriage are good. Really good. Grace is affectionate, supportive, present. She talks about wanting kids someday. Not right now. She wants to get the nonprofit stable first, but someday. Richard is cautiously optimistic. Maybe this time, he'll actually get the family he's always wanted. Then Grace starts traveling, starts small, a weekend trip to Oakland. Donor meetings, she says. Potential partner organization interested in replicating her model. Richard doesn't think much of it. Her nonprofit is growing. It makes sense she'd need to network. But then it happens again. 2 weeks later, another Oakland trip. Then again, and again. By month 4, Grace is going to Oakland every other weekend. And it's always Oakland. Never San Francisco, never Berkeley, never Sacramento, just Oakland. Richard asks about it one night over dinner. How many donor meetings can one city have? Grace laughs it off. You'd be surprised. Oakland has a huge network of nonprofits, lots of collaboration opportunities. She kisses him on the forehead, changes the subject. Richard lets it go. Month 5, month 6. The trips keep happening, but now Grace is being vague about details. Who's the meeting with? Just some potential partners. I'll know more after I get there. What hotel are you staying at? The nonprofit books it. I think it's near Lake Merritt. I don't remember. She's always on her phone now, texting, smiling at the screen, angling it away when Richard walks by. She starts dressing differently before these trips. New clothes, more effort with makeup, a perfume Richard doesn't recognize. One night, Richard asks, "Do you want me to come with you sometime? I've never been to Oakland." Grace freezes, just for a second, then recovers. It's all work stuff. You'd be bored out of your mind. But the way she says it, too quick, too defensive, Richard knows something's off. He's felt this before, with Haley, that sinking sensation in his stomach, that voice in the back of his head whispering, something's wrong. But he doesn't want to be paranoid. He doesn't want his past trauma to destroy this relationship. So he tells himself he's overthinking. Grace isn't Haley. Grace is different. Grace is safe. Grace starts pulling away, not dramatically, just gradually. She's distracted during dinner, checking her phone between bites. She goes to bed earlier, falls asleep with her back to him. When Richard tries to initiate intimacy, she's always tired. Long day, babe. Rain check? The rain check never comes. Richard tries to talk to her about it. Are we okay? You seem distant. I'm fine, just stressed with work. Is there anything I can do? No, I just need to get through this grant cycle. But the grant cycle ends and nothing changes. One night, Grace falls asleep on the couch. Her phone is still in her hand, screen glowing. Richard is lying next to her, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. He's replaying everything. The trips, the distance, the vague answers. The phone buzzes. A notification lights up the screen. Richard shouldn't look. He knows he shouldn't, but he does. It's a message preview from someone named Fit and Free. Can't wait to see you this weekend. I've been counting the days. Richard's stomach drops. He carefully takes the phone from Grace's hand. She doesn't stir. He unlocks it. He knows the passcode. Grace gave it to him months ago when they were still pretending they had nothing to hide. He opens her messages, and there it is, a dating app, buried in a folder, hidden behind wellness and productivity apps. Profile name, G. Wanderer. Richard clicks it. Photos of Grace. No face shots, but it's definitely her. Same tattoo on her shoulder blade. Same bracelet she wears every day. Profile status, single, seeking, women, location, Oakland. His hands are shaking. He scrolls through the messages. There are dozens of conversations, but one stands out, Fit and Free. The messages go back months, long before the wedding, maybe even before they started dating. Miss waking up next to you. Last weekend was perfect. I don't want to wait 2 more weeks. You make me feel things I forgot I could feel. Richard keeps scrolling. His vision is tunneling. His heart is pounding so loud he can hear it in his ears. Then he sees it, a reference to a memory. Remember that road trip we took to Joshua Tree? When you made me pull over because you thought you saw a coyote? Richard freezes. He took a road trip to Joshua Tree years ago with Haley. He scrolls faster now, looking for more clues. Another message. I can't believe we're doing this. Your ex has no idea. Another. It's kind of poetic, don't you think? That we found each other. And then he finds a photo, partially cropped. Just an arm draped over Grace's shoulder. But Richard recognizes that arm, the tattoo on the wrist, a small infinity symbol. Haley has that exact tattoo. Richard is sitting in the dark, his wife asleep next to him, her phone glowing in his hands. And his brain is trying to process what he's seeing, because it can't be. Out of everyone in California, out of everyone in the entire world, it can't be her, but it is. Grace, his second chance, his fresh start, his proof that good people still exist, has been sleeping with Haley, his ex-wife, the woman who spent 8 years destroying him, and they've been doing it for months, right under his nose. What would you do if you discovered your current partner was secretly involved with your ex? Would you confront them immediately, or would you investigate first to make sure you had all the facts? Be honest. Drop your answer below. Because Richard is about to make a choice, and that choice is going to cost him everything. Richard doesn't move. He's sitting in the dark, Grace's phone still glowing in his hands, and he's reading the messages over and over, looking for proof that he's wrong, that he's misinterpreting, that his trauma is making him paranoid. But the proof is right there. The Joshua Tree reference, the infinity tattoo, the username, Fit and Free. Haley used to call herself a free spirit when they were married. It's her. His ex-wife and his current wife have been together for months, maybe longer, and Richard just sits there, frozen, numb. Grace stirs on the couch, shifts position. Her hand reaches for her phone. Richard places it back in her palm, carefully, quietly. She doesn't wake up. He gets up, walks to the bedroom, closes the door, and then he screams into a pillow until his throat burns. Richard doesn't sleep. He lies in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying 8 years with Haley. The abuse, the cheating, the lies, the way she drained him of everything, money, confidence, hope. And now she's with Grace, his Grace, the woman who was supposed to be different, the woman who was supposed to be safe. At 4 a.m., Richard gets up, grabs his own phone. He opens the screenshots he took earlier, scrolls through them again, methodically, looking for more. He finds them. Messages from 2 months ago, right after he and Grace got married. Grace, it's weird, right? that we're both connected to him. Haley, honestly, I think it's kind of poetic, like the universe giving us a second chance. Grace, do you think he knows? Haley, Richard? God, no. He's too busy pretending everything's fine. He always was. They knew. They knew from the beginning. Grace knew she was dating Haley's ex-husband. Haley knew Grace was marrying her ex-husband. And they laughed about it, bonded over it, used him as a punchline. Richard doesn't confront Grace the next morning. He doesn't say anything when she kisses him goodbye and heads to the office. He goes to work, sits through meetings, reviews blueprints, responds to emails. On the outside, he's functional. On the inside, he's burning. For 3 days, Richard plays the role of oblivious husband. He asks Grace about her day, makes dinner, watches TV next to her on the couch, all while his phone is full of screenshots that prove she's been lying to him since the day they met. He's waiting, watching, planning, because Grace has another trip scheduled this weekend. Oakland. Donor gala, she tells him Thursday night. Big fundraiser. Could bring in serious money for the nonprofit. Richard nods, smiles, kisses her forehead. That's amazing, babe. I'm proud of you. Grace leaves Friday afternoon. Richard waits until her Uber pulls away from the curb. Then he opens his laptop and books a flight. Richard boards Southwest Flight 1843 to Oakland at 6:15 p.m. Window seat, row 12. He's carrying a small duffel bag. Wallet, phone charger, change of clothes, and a Glock 19. He bought it 2 years ago, right after the divorce. Haley showed up at his condo one night, drunk, screaming through the door about money she claimed he owed her. He bought the gun for protection, just in case she came back. He's kept it in his nightstand ever since. Hasn't fired it in months. He doesn't know why he's bringing it now. He's not planning anything. He just needs it. The flight is 90 minutes. Richard doesn't sleep, doesn't read, doesn't look at his phone. He just sits there, staring out the window at the dark ocean below, his mind completely blank. At 7:45 p.m., the plane lands at Oakland International. Richard rents a car, black Honda Accord, Enterprise counter. The agent asks if he needs a GPS. No, I'm good. He already knows where he's going. Lakeshore Avenue, apartment 8C. He punched the address into his phone days ago, memorized it, studied the street view on Google Maps. The drive from the airport takes 25 minutes. Richard drives through Oakland in silence. No music, no podcasts, just the hum of the engine and the sound of his own breathing. He passes Lake Merritt, joggers on the path, families walking dogs, people living normal lives. He used to be one of those people. Now he's driving to confront his wife and his ex-wife in a city 400 miles from home with a loaded gun in his bag. Richard parks across the street from the apartment complex at 8:10 p.m. It's a 3-story building, beige stucco, blue trim, balconies with rusted railings, a cracked parking lot with faded lines. Apartment 8C is on the second floor. He can see the door from where he's parked. The lights are off. Richard waits. Minutes pass. Then an hour. Then 2. The sun sets. The streetlights flicker on. The temperature drops. Richard doesn't move, doesn't eat, doesn't drink. Just sits there watching the dark window, waiting. His phone buzzes. A text from Grace. Made it to the hotel. Gala starts at 8. Love you. Richard doesn't respond. At 8:20 p.m., a car pulls into the parking lot. A silver Subaru Outback. California plates. Grace gets out. She's wearing jeans and a sweater, carrying an overnight bag. She looks happy, relaxed, like she's coming home after a long trip. She walks toward the building, up the stairs, down the second-floor walkway. She stops at apartment 8C, knocks twice. The door opens. Haley steps out. Richard can see them clearly from the car. Haley's hair is shorter now, cropped close. She's wearing leggings and an oversized flannel shirt. Grace drops her bag, smiles. They hug. Not a polite hug, not a friendly hug. A real hug, long, comfortable. The kind of hug you give someone you've been missing. And then they kiss. Richard watches his wife kiss his ex-wife on the balcony of an apartment 400 miles from home. He watches Haley's hand slide to the back of Grace's neck, watches Grace lean into it, watches them pull apart just enough to smile at each other. Then they disappear inside. The door closes, the lights turn on. Richard can see their shadows moving behind the curtains. He sits there for 5 more minutes, watching, waiting for the anger to hit. But it doesn't. There's no anger, no sadness, no heartbreak. Just a cold, empty clarity. He opens the car door. Richard crosses the street. His duffel bag is slung over his shoulder. The gun is inside, wrapped in a t-shirt. He walks into the building. The lobby door is propped open. Someone wedged a piece of cardboard in the frame so they don't need a key to get back in. Richard takes the stairs. His footsteps echo in the stairwell. 2nd floor, down the hallway. Apartment 8C is at the end. He can hear them inside, talking, laughing. Bich stands there for a moment, hand raised, ready to knock. And he thinks about leaving, about walking away, about going back to the airport and pretending he never came here. But then he hears Haley's voice through the door. "I still can't believe he doesn't know." Grace laughs. "He's so trusting. It's almost sad." "I told you, Richard doesn't ask questions. He just hopes for the best." They're laughing at him. Right now, in this moment. While he's standing outside the door, they're laughing. Richard knocks. The door opens. Grace is standing there, holding a glass of wine, smiling like she's expecting a neighbor or a delivery. And then she sees him. The smile drops. The glass almost slips from her hand. Her face goes white. "Richard!" Behind her, Haley appears in the doorway. And when she sees him, her eyes widen. Confusion, then recognition, then fear. Richard just stands there, calm, quiet, his duffel bag slung over his shoulder, and he says one word. "Surprise." If this story is hitting different, if you're realizing that betrayal doesn't just hurt once, it echoes through every relationship after, hit that like button. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's been through something similar or is going through it right now, share this video, because sometimes people need to know they're not alone in the chaos. Sometimes they need to see their pain reflected back so they know they're not losing their mind for feeling what they feel. Do you think some betrayals are worse than others? Like, is being cheated on with your ex worse than being cheated on with a stranger? What makes a betrayal unforgivable for you? Let's hear your perspective. Because what happens next, what Richard does in the next 60 seconds, is going to change everything. And there's no coming back from it. Grace is frozen in the doorway, wine glass trembling in her hand. "What are you doing here?" Richard doesn't answer. He's looking past her, at Haley. His ex-wife is standing in the middle of the living room, arms crossed, face pale. For a moment, nobody moves, nobody speaks. Then Richard steps inside. Grace backs up automatically, like her body knows something her brain hasn't processed yet. "How long?" Richard's voice is flat, empty. Grace tries to speak. Her mouth opens, closes, opens again. "Richard, I can explain." "How long?" Haley steps forward. "Richard, listen." "No." He cuts her off. "You don't get to talk, either of you." The duffel bag is still on his shoulder. His hand rests on the strap, close to the zipper. Grace is crying now. "Please, just let me explain. This isn't what? Isn't what it looks like? Isn't you sleeping with my ex-wife behind my back for months? Isn't you two laughing about how stupid I am?" Silence. "Yeah, I read the messages." Grace's face crumbles. Richard pulls out his phone, opens the screenshots, reads them aloud. "It's weird, right? That we're both connected to him? I think it's kind of poetic." "Richard, God, no, he's too busy pretending everything's fine. He always was." He looks up, locks eyes with Grace. "Did you know who she was when you met me?" Grace doesn't answer. "Answer me." "Yes." Her voice is barely a whisper. "Yes, I knew." Richard's jaw clenches. "From the beginning. Not the very beginning, but early, a few weeks in. And you kept seeing me anyway. It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Grace? Explain it to me. Make it make sense." Grace wipes her eyes. We ran into each other at a coffee shop in Oakland. I recognized her from your photos. We started talking. One thing led to another. One thing led to another. Richard laughs. It's a cold, bitter sound. You met my ex-wife, the woman who spent 8 years destroying me, and you started sleeping with her. It wasn't planned, but you kept doing it. You married me. You stood in front of a judge and promised to be faithful, and then you flew to Oakland every other weekend to be with her. Grace is sobbing now, full body-shaking sobs. Haley speaks up. Richard, we didn't mean to hurt you. Didn't mean to. Richard turns to her. You spent 8 years cheating on me. You hit me. You drained my savings. And when I finally got away from you, you found my new wife and convinced her to betray me too. That's not how it happened. Then how did it happen, Haley? Tell me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you two have been playing me for a fool this entire time. Richard is shaking, his hands, his voice, his entire body. I gave you everything, Haley, everything. I worked myself to death trying to make you happy. I forgave you every time you cheated, every time you hit me, every time you stole from me. And you know what the worst part is? He steps closer. I thought it was my fault. I thought I was the problem. I thought if I just tried harder, loved you better, gave you more, you'd finally be happy. Haley looks away. And then I met you. He turns to Grace. And I thought, finally someone who sees me, someone who values me, someone who won't destroy me. Grace is crying so hard she can barely breathe. But you were worse, because you knew what she did to me, and you did it anyway. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. Richard's hand is on the duffel bag now. His fingers find the zipper. Do you know what it's like? His voice is quieter now, deadlier. To think you finally escaped your nightmare, only to find out your nightmare has been sleeping with your dream the whole time? Neither woman answers. I rebuilt my life. I went to therapy. I saved money. I learned to trust again. I opened my heart to you, Grace. I married you, and the whole time, you were planning trips to see her. He unzips the bag. Grace sees it first. Her eyes go wide. Richard, don't! Richard pulls out the Glock. Grace screams. Haley stumbles backward. Wait, Richard, please. Please what? He's not yelling anymore. His voice is calm, terrifyingly calm. Please forgive you again? Please let you explain? Please pretend this didn't happen? We can fix this. There's nothing to fix. Grace is backing toward the wall. Hands up. Richard, please, I'm pregnant. Time stops. Richard freezes. The gun lowers slightly. What? I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. I was going to tell you when I got back. Richard stares at her, searching her face for the lie. But she's not lying. He can see it in her eyes. You're lying. I'm not, I swear. I found out 2 weeks ago. I have the test in my bag. I can show you. Stop talking. Grace goes quiet. Richard is shaking harder now. You're pregnant, and you're here, with her. I know it's wrong. I was going to end it. I swear. I was going to tell you everything and end it. When? His voice cracks. When were you going to tell me? After another month of trips? Another year? I don't know. You don't know. Richard looks at the gun in his hand, then at Grace, then at Haley, and something inside him just shatters. I wanted kids with you. He's talking to Haley now. For 8 years I begged you, and you said no. You said we couldn't afford it. You said you weren't ready. You said maybe someday. Haley's eyes fill with tears. And now you're here, with her, and she's pregnant, with my child, and you're okay with it. Richard, were you going to help her raise it? Is that the plan? The two of you playing house, raising my kid, while I'm at home thinking my wife is at donor galas? Nobody answers. Richard laughs. It's a broken, hollow sound. I'm the punchline again. He raises the gun. Grace drops to her knees. Richard, please, think about the baby, please. I am thinking about the baby. His voice is cold. I'm thinking about how I'll never get to meet them, how they'll grow up with two mothers who built their relationship on lies, How every time I look at them, I'll see this. We can figure it out. There's nothing to figure out. Richard pulls the trigger. The first shot hits Grace in the chest. She crumples. No scream, just a gasp. Haley tries to run. She makes it 3 steps. The second shot hits her in the back. She falls, hard. Richard stands there, gun still raised, smoke curling from the barrel. Grace is on the floor, gasping, hand pressed to her chest, blood seeping through her fingers. Haley isn't moving. Richard lowers the gun, looks at his hands. They're steady now, not shaking anymore. He hears screaming in the hallway, doors opening, someone yelling, "Call 911." But Richard doesn't run, doesn't panic, doesn't try to explain. He just sets the gun on the counter, walks to the door, steps into the hallway. A neighbor, older man, gray hair, terrified eyes, backs away from him. Richard walks past him, down the stairs, out of the building. He gets in the rental car, starts the engine, and drives. Richard drives for hours. He doesn't know where he's going, just drives. Highway 580 East, through Hayward, through Livermore, into the Central Valley. He pulls off the highway somewhere outside Modesto. A rest stop, dark, empty except for a few semi-trucks. He parks in the back corner, away from the lights, away from people. He turns off the engine, and then he just sits there. The gun is on the passenger seat, wrapped in his t-shirt now, blood on the fabric. His hands are still clean. He didn't touch them, didn't check if they were breathing, just left. His phone buzzes, text from an unknown number. He ignores it. It buzzes again, a call this time, then another, then voicemails piling up. Richard turns the phone off, tosses it in the glove compartment, and then he closes his eyes. Richard wakes up at dawn, neck stiff from sleeping in the driver's seat. For a moment, he forgets where he is, why he's here. Then he sees the gun, the blood, and it all comes back. He opens the glove compartment, looking for napkins, something to wipe his hands even though they're not dirty, and he finds a folded piece of paper, wedged between the rental agreement and a map. He unfolds it. It's a doctor's appointment confirmation. Grace's name at the top. Appointment type, first trimester ultrasound. Date, June 23rd, 2023. Below it, handwritten in Grace's looping script, "Can't wait to tell Richard. He's going to be so happy." Richard stares at the note. His hands start shaking again. He crumples the paper, throws it on the floor, then picks it back up, smooths it out, reads it again. He's going to be so happy. He folds it carefully, puts it back in the glove compartment, and then he starts crying. 2 days later, California Highway Patrol finds Richard at the same rest stop, still in the car, still in the same clothes, the gun wrapped in a bloody t-shirt on the passenger seat. When they knock on the window, Richard doesn't resist, doesn't ask for a lawyer, doesn't try to explain. He just unlocks the door, lets them cuff him, and asks one question. "Did they die?" The officer nods. "Both of them. I'm sorry." Richard closes his eyes. Good. They take Richard to the San Joaquin County Sheriff's Office. Small interrogation room, gray walls, metal table, 2 chairs, a camera blinking red in the corner. Detective Amy Thornton sits across from him. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, 20 years on the force. "Do you know why you're here, Richard?" He doesn't look at her, just stares at the table. "Richard, I need you to talk to me. They're dead. Yes, Grace Moreau and Haley Banks, both pronounced dead at Highland Hospital in Oakland. Do you know what happened to them?" "I shot them." Detective Thornton leans back. "You shot them?" "Yes." "Why?" Richard finally looks up. His eyes are red, hollow. "Because they destroyed me." Richard tells them everything, shows them the screenshots on his phone, the dating app profile, the messages between Grace and Haley. He tells them about the 8 years with Haley, the abuse, the cheating, the financial control. He tells them about meeting Grace, about thinking he'd finally found someone good, someone safe. He tells them about the trips to Oakland, the distance, the lies. He tells them about finding the messages, about realizing his current wife was sleeping with his ex-wife, They knew who each other was. They knew they were both connected to me, and they thought it was funny. Detective Thornton writes everything down. And then what happened? I flew to Oakland. I went to the apartment. I knocked on the door. And? Grace answered. Haley was inside. I asked them how long it had been going on. Grace said she knew from the beginning. And that's when you shot them? No. The detective looks up. No. Grace told me she was pregnant first. Silence. She said she was 8 weeks pregnant, that she was going to tell me when she got back, that she was going to end things with Haley. Did you believe her? Richard doesn't answer. Did you believe her, Richard? It doesn't matter if I believed her. She was still there, in that apartment, with Haley, while I was at home thinking she was at a work event. So you shot her. So I shot her. The prosecution builds their case fast. Flight records show Richard booked a ticket to Oakland the same day Grace left, used his real name, his credit card, rental car agreement, GPS data showing he drove straight from the airport to Lakeshore Avenue. Security footage from the apartment complex shows Richard entering the building at 8:43 p.m., leaving at 8:51 p.m., 8 minutes. That's how long he was inside. Ballistics report confirms the bullets came from his Glock, registered in his name, purchased 2 years prior. Text messages between Richard and Grace. The last one sent by Grace at 8:15 p.m. Made it to the hotel. Gala starts at 8. Love you? Richard never responded. Autopsy reports. Grace died from a gunshot wound to the chest. Bled out in minutes. Haley died from a gunshot wound to the back. Severed her spine. Died on the floor of the apartment. And the final piece of evidence, the ultrasound appointment confirmation found in the rental car. Grace was 8 weeks pregnant when she died. The trial starts 4 months later. San Joaquin County Superior Court. Judge Patricia Lawson presiding. The prosecution argues first-degree murder, premeditated, calculated. Richard Jonathan didn't act in the heat of passion. He bought a plane ticket. He rented a car. He drove to the apartment. He brought a loaded weapon. He had hours to turn around, to call someone, to walk away. But he didn't. He walked up to that door knowing exactly what he was going to do. And he did it. 2 women are dead. One of them was carrying his child. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was murder. The defense argues differently. Richard Jonathan is a victim of prolonged abuse from his first wife, a victim of betrayal from his second wife, a victim of psychological trauma that compounded over years. When he discovered that his ex-wife, the woman who spent 8 years destroying him, was in a relationship with his current wife, his mind broke. This wasn't premeditation. This was a man pushed beyond his limits. They bring in Dr. Rachel Kim, forensic psychologist, expert in trauma and PTSD. Richard exhibits classic signs of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Years of abuse, gaslighting, and betrayal fundamentally altered his brain's ability to process stress and threat. When he saw Haley with Grace, his brain didn't see 2 separate people. It saw one continuous threat, a threat that had followed him from one marriage to the next, a threat he couldn't escape. In that moment, Richard wasn't thinking rationally. He was in a dissociative state, fight or flight, and he fought. The prosecution brings their own expert, Dr. Leonard Hayes, 30 years in criminal psychology. Trauma doesn't excuse murder. Millions of people experience abuse and betrayal. They don't kill their partners. Richard Jonathan made conscious choices. He chose to board that plane. He chose to drive to that apartment. He chose to bring a weapon. And most importantly, Grace told him she was pregnant. She begged for her life, and he shot her anyway. That's not a man in a dissociative state. That's a man making a choice. The jury listens, takes notes, shows no emotion. Witness testimonies pile up. Grace's sister takes the stand, crying, says Grace was planning to leave Haley, that she was going to confess everything to Richard and start fresh. Richard's therapist testifies, confirms he was working through trauma from his first marriage, but says Richard never expressed violent thoughts or ideation. Neighbors from the Oakland apartment heard the shots, saw Richard leave, said he looked calm, almost detached. The prosecution plays their final card. Recorded jailhouse phone call. Richard talking to a friend 3 weeks after his arrest. Friend: do you regret it? Richard: no. Friend: not even a little? Richard: they deserved what they got. The courtroom goes silent. The jury deliberates for 6 hours. They come back at 4:37 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. Judge Lawson asks for the verdict. On the count of first-degree murder in the death of Grace Moreau, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of first-degree murder in the death of Haley Banks, how do you find? Guilty. Richard doesn't react, just sits there, hands folded on the table. His lawyer puts a hand on his shoulder. Richard doesn't move. Sentencing is scheduled for 2 weeks later. Judge Lawson doesn't waste time. Richard Jonathan, you have been found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. This court sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. You will serve your sentence at the California State Prison in Corcoran. You will have no eligibility for parole, no possibility of early release. This court also notes that one of your victims was 8 weeks pregnant at the time of her death. While California law does not recognize fetal homicide in this context, this court acknowledges the life that was lost. Richard still doesn't react. The bailiff leads him away. Handcuffs, shackles. He doesn't look back. Richard is now 41 years old. He's been in Corcoran State Prison for 6 months when we check in on him. Cell block C, single cell, 6 by 8 feet, metal cot, stainless steel toilet, small desk bolted to the wall. He spends most of his time alone, doesn't talk to other inmates, doesn't go to the yard, doesn't attend group therapy or religious services. He just sits in his cell, reading, thinking. Every morning he wakes up at 6 a.m. when the lights turn on, and every morning he asks himself the same question. Was it worth it? The answer is always no, because Grace and Haley are dead. The baby that could have been his is gone. His career is over, his life is over, and every single day for the rest of his life, he'll wake up in this cell and remember what he did. But here's the thing that haunts him most. It's not the guilt. It's not the life sentence. It's not even the baby. It's the memory of those few seconds, standing in that doorway, Grace admitting she knew, him raising the gun, when pulling the trigger felt right. For just a moment, the rage felt like relief. The violence felt like justice. And that's what terrifies him. Because what does it say about him? What does it say about any of us when destruction feels like closure? Richard will spend the next 40, maybe 50 years in that cell. Grace and Haley will stay 29 and 30 forever. Frozen in time, reduced to names in a case file, and somewhere out there, someone is reading this story and thinking, that could never be me. But Richard thought that too. He thought he'd escaped. He thought he'd healed. He thought his second marriage would be different. He didn't know his nightmare was just getting started. So here's where we are. Richard is in prison. 2 women are dead. A child was never born. And somewhere out there, someone watching this video is in a situation they think they can handle. They're ignoring red flags. They're staying with someone who's draining them. They're giving second chances to people who don't deserve first ones. And they're telling themselves, it's not that bad. I can fix this. It'll get better. But Richard thought that too. For 8 years with Haley, he thought he could fix it. And when he met Grace, he thought he'd finally escaped. He didn't know his nightmare was just getting started. So if you take nothing else from this story, take this. The patterns you ignore today become the prison you live in tomorrow. Whether that's a literal prison or the prison of regret, bitterness, and what-ifs. Don't wait until you're sitting in a cell, replaying one irreversible moment over and over, wondering how your life turned into a true crime story. Because by then, it's already too late. Do you think Richard was a victim who broke, or a murderer who chose violence? Can someone be both? Or does the moment you pull the trigger erase everything that happened before? Drop your thoughts. Let's get real in the comments. Because this story doesn't have easy answers. And maybe that's the point. That's the story of Richard Jonathan, a man who escaped one nightmare, walked into another, and destroyed everything in the process. No winners, no redemption, just loss, grief, and a life sentence. If this story made you think, really think, about betrayal, breaking points, and the cost of rage, do me a favor. Share this video, not for the algorithm, but because someone in your life might need to see it. Someone who's holding on too tight to something that's destroying them. Someone who thinks they're alone in their pain. Be that person for them, and don't forget to subscribe to Compass True Crime Stories. We're not here to glorify violence. We're here to understand it, to learn from it, to make sure your story doesn't end up being the next one we cover. Thank you for watching to the end, and see you in our next episode of Compass True Crime Stories. Stay safe.